Hey, I'm Scott Nimrod, and I don't know. I've been on a campaign the past 72 hours of just pushing content, things that I find is things that I have found to be useful, and I think I want to keep on going. So I've been building a mobile application using Xamarin Android and FSharp. And there's some things that I've learned from the exercise, and maybe I guess I'll share it with you. So let's get started. Where am I at? I don't look at that. So let me close all this out, and yeah. So Xamarin and F Sharp. If you notice, let me go back to me. Let me go back to me. If you notice, I'm doing all this within Visual Studio. I'm not doing this in Android Studio. Because I don't like changing something that already works for me. So, and Visual Studio, I'm just really, I don't know, I'm really productive. You look at my past video, I posted like 5 hours ago. I showed or I demonstrated some of the productivity tools that you can leverage in Visual Studio. And well, I don't want to change. So this is Visual Studio, and I've been working on some healthcare application. This is my test suite, right? And if you want to look at the details, oh yeah, all right. So I'm pro TDD, test-driven development, right? It keeps me on track. I usually know my status as I'm working, and I know that I didn't break anything, or there's a high probability I didn't break anything in regards to business logic, as I'm just plugging away. All right, so yeah, so this is my test explorer. These are some of the tests that I've written, that I've wrote, whatever the correct grammar is, and all this is done in F sharp. You notice there's like no funky underscores in between the words, camel casing, Pascal casing, whatever it's called. You don't see any of that, and that is because of F sharp that I'm working within. So actually, the solution is. Let me go back to me. So the solution is. I don't know. I keep hearing this term polyglot. Whatever that means, I think that's what I'm doing. All right. So what does that mean? Oh, the actual domain logic is built in F sharp. I feel so smart. I'm a functional programmer now. Like so smart. And and the client is or shall I say the user interface client is in C sharp, right? And so what I've been able to do is within Visual Studio, I've been able to take a C sharp client that represents the user interface, right? I've been able to wire it up to a domain logic, a set of libraries representing the domain logic, aka business rules. That has been written in F sharp. And I did it all by myself with the help of the Stack Overflow community. And big thank you to Mark Seaman, Scott Vlashin, Isaac Abra. I can't remember Isaac's last name. But the people on Twitter that are revolve around F sharp, and the people on Stack Overflow, like they answer my questions, and you want to start building systems that are next generation, or should I say, using next generation programming languages. You hit them up. You hit up Mark Seaman. You hit up Scott Vlashin. You hit up Tomas Petrick, whatever his last name is, and give them lots of money because they're worth it. Anyway, I'm done marketing them. Let me go back. So, as I said before, my unit tests, my test suite, They're all written in FSharp. You probably want to look at some of the code, like, yeah, login settings, right? I If people want me to go into detail in one of my videos on how to write basic unit tests, some people might argue with me on the definition of the unit test. So maybe I shouldn't use the term unit test. Maybe I should use the term automated tests. All right. I could pump out a video about that. I pumped out a video where a lightweight struggled to write an automated test to test a confirmation interface. For some reason, as I'm talking, there's a bird that's chirping really loudly, and it's really annoying me. Yeah, distractions. Maybe I should close this window, man. One second. Even Mother Nature is hating on me. This morning my dog was hating on me. Now Mother Nature is hating on me. Freaking birds chirping. I'm trying to give a presentation. All right, so let's get back. So if I hit Control ML, everything should collapse. Control ML within FSharp collapses. All right. Make sure you get FSharp productivity tools. Right. That's extensions and updates. Tools, extensions and updates. And you should be able to look up. Where is it at? It should be called like FSharp. Oh, come on. FSharp Power Tools, right? And that gives you the ability to expand and collapse your I don't know, scopes of logic, or specifically methods. So yeah, and so what I'm demoing. I don't think I'm going to actually run the application for you, but let me just go into detail. Like in past videos, I said I'm leveraging clean architecture, right? Uncle Bob has some videos on that, in which you can look at the solution. Your solution screams the architecture, right? Screams intent. And so what does this mean? Well, these are the main libraries that make up my application, right, in regards to architecture. And everything else is a detail. The tests are details. And you'll see that I have a library called tests, which has hella tests in here based on different features. Oh, yeah. All right. Home, register, benefits overview, benefits plan, benefits usage. Oh, okay. And so those are my unit tests, right? That I pack a whole bunch of unit test methods into a unit test file, and I give the unit test file a feature name. And then I have a test API project, right? And the test API has a whole bunch of mock classes, and that's where I go to just plug in arbitrary data to validate that my business logic is working. Yeah. And what else? I showed you the high level architecture within my solution, because my solution screams it. And I showed you my test folder. My test folder has the actual unit test project. It has a whole bunch of test files to represent features of my domain logic. And what else? I showed you my test API that has mocks, and it's responsible for just spitting out arbitrary data so I can rapidly build logic, right, and test it. That's what my test API is. And if you want to know a really good book, because you guys are professional developers, I expect you people to read books. Right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stay up to date. You don't depend on your company to train you to be a professional. They hired you because they thought you were a professional. Why are you asking them to train you? Like, WTF? I don't get it. All right, let me start venting. So look, so I showed you my tests folder, right? So basically, this is let me go back to me. Within my solution, I think I picked up a habit of anything that's in a folder at a high level, within my solution represents details. It is not the application. It's not the architecture. It's details that contribute towards the architecture. All right, that's the mentality that I have right now. If it's in a folder and it's in the top level folder of my solution explorer within Visual Studio, it's an implementation detail. All right. It's like so philosophical. All right, let me go back. Ugh. And so that was my test folder, and these are the implementation details of my test. Why is my phone ringing? I thought I silenced it. Yeah, I gotta pause this because this is about a contract. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So let me go back. So angry right now. All right, so I went over my tests, implementation details, and you know what else is the implementation detail of this architecture is well, the actual integration, right? The actual clients that are going to leverage this domain logic, is an Android client, right? And then we have some integration logic in which we have, a delegate command, and we have some dispatcher that's responsible for some events. I'm not proud of this class right here. I'm not proud of this dispatcher. But this is what a delegate command look like. Yeah. Anyway, so all the implementation details I tuck away in folders, and everything that represents the domain logic, that actually represents the architecture, kind of like a house or a church or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Well, that's out here and it's screaming what it does. So that's pretty much it. What else you want to know? Let me dig into oh yeah. All right, so look. So this is kind of what I've learned. I'm sharing you what I've learned. I might have it all wrong, right? But this is what I've learned. So FSharp, right? Because I did the majority of this in FSharp. I'm so smart, right? And FSharp is they like to say a function first programming language, functional first programming language. And what does that mean? It means that you're encouraged to implement business rules via functions, if I can say that, and but it provides support, full support for object-oriented mayhem. And so, with that said, I've learned as I'm building out this application, I'm pretty proud of my progress, that this is what I've learned. I've learned that I've always wondered, like, yo, what the freak? Like, why? When am I supposed to use a module within FSharp? And when am I supposed to use a namespace? And I might have this all wrong, right? Because a lot of things in FSharp, people tell me like, yo, you're screwing up. And I'm like, oh, tell me how to do it the right way. I don't know. I'm a student. But so far, what makes sense to me, the way I've been building this application is, where am I at? Modules, let me go back to me again. Modules pretty much contain the functions that I write that are just pure business logic with no dependencies on integration logic. All right, so what does that mean? Basically, this is exactly what I just said. I use modules when the types within that module have no dependency on interacting with the outside world. They are completely isolated, encapsulated, if I could even use that, from interacting with the outside world, right? And this is the business rules, right? This is the business logic, not integration logic, business logic. And so that's where I think it makes sense. People can correct me. I'm still the student that I use modules for that. All right. So what does that mean? All right. Let me show you. So like for example, there's a if I do control comma, and I say account, and yeah, and so here's a module account, yeah, and do control ML to expand, and these are the types defined within my account module, right? So I kind of left that out is functions and types, and I don't really have any functions in here because I haven't found a need to have any functions in here. But let me lower this a little bit. But that's an example of me taking advantage of the type system within FSharp and flushing out all the different types that my domain logic is going to harness. And again, that's under a module. That right there. Yeah. All right. So that's an example of a module. And example of when I would use a namespace is, for example, view models, right? That's also done in FSharp. Oh, yeah. Oh. And so for view models, that is when I use a namespace. And another reason why now I know, or I think I know, when to use a namespace over a module is because within how do I do this? Within .NET, you throw like I guess integration logic under a namespace, right? You let a namespace host the integration logic. So for a view model, I might have this all wrong, but this is currently what my interpretation as I'm learning as I'm going is a view model, right? It has no clue who the client is that is leveraging it, but a client can basically go ahead and import a namespace that my view model resides in. It's written in FSharp, right? It doesn't matter. It could be written in C#. And from there, it can go ahead and, yeah, this is where I want to talk about. The namespaces, I can sprinkle a namespace, path, value, whatever you want to call it. I can sprinkle it all throughout my files, right? I can have, each file can be a view model and yet have the same namespace, right? Sit under the same namespace. And that makes sense to me in regards to organizing my code, right? So what does that mean? Well, you see that this name for this home view model, well, the namespace is home, right? For this portal view model, the namespace is home, right? For this support view model, the namespace is home, right? Yada, 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 yada. So I found that at least when I attempted to use modules, I didn't have the ability to have to declare modules in different files. Or let me try to say this in a different way. I found that I was not able to declare the same module throughout various files. I couldn't do it. And well, I mean, I'm organizing view models under a specific area, under a specific container that I want to reference throughout my client. And so to me, it only makes sense to have just one qualified namespace value to put it under. Yeah, I'm butchering this as I try to articulate it, but you'll figure out soon. So to recap, I've learned to use a module when I'm working with domain logic, in which I have declared my types and my functions within a module. But when I need to spread out, some logic that can are somewhat related to a specific piece of functionality, that's when I would use namespaces. And an example of that is having a whole bunch of view model classes, and throwing them under a specific namespace value. If I could say that, I don't feel right saying namespace value. Throwing it under a specific namespace. So that's what I've learned, when to use a module and when to use a namespace when building a system in FSharp. Let me go back. All right, so I talked about that. And what else I want to talk about? I think that's pretty much it. What's really cool is, check this out. So, hey, you know what? I bet you I don't even need this anymore. Let me delete that. Let me delete you too. Let me delete you too. Maybe that's not what. No, it's not that smart. Hold up. So, let me delete you. How about that? You still build? I don't always have to be explicit about the type. Yo, what the freak? Hold up. All right, maybe I do. That should go away. Everything goes away. Scratch what I was getting ready to say. Something that's cool is, look, check this out. You see how within the constructor I have these parameters: member ID, dispatcher, repository, right? Like, you see how I pass it in the constructor up here as a parameter, right? Well, from the client, I pass it in as an argument. But this parameter up here, repository, dispatcher, member ID, you notice how, like, I didn't do any type of funky ceremony assignment. Oh, is this still necessary? Yeah, I guess so. Notice how I didn't have to, like, I don't say, this dot member ID equals member ID, this dot dispatcher equals dispatcher, this dot repository equals repository under here. I don't do that. Like, that's so awesome. And in C#, you pretty much have to perform the ceremony of having member variables defined of the same type of your parameters that are within your constructor, and then you have to assign the values of those parameters within your constructor to the member variables. And FSharp is like, well, no, we don't really have to do that. So what's cool is, this is SupportViewModel. All right, if I do I have ILSpy open output in ILSpy? Let me see if I can do this. That's SupportViewModel. Oh, Scott, you're so smart. All right, so where am I at? Home, SupportViewModel. Yeah. All right. So if you scroll down, you remember that the dispatcher and repository and member ID that I passed in to this view model? Like, the compiler within FSharp will say, hey, we already know that if these are the parameters within your constructor, we already know that normally you would create some member variables and then assign these parameter values to the member variables. You don't even have to do that. We want you to be as productive as possible. Like, we got this. And so the compiler will actually create the member variables for you, right? It does this, right? And this is one of the reasons why FSharp is a more productive language than C#, right? And by the way, when people, I guess most of you probably like, well, what just happened? Well, I don't know. Is this called a decompiler? I basically, there's an ILSpy that you can download as a Visual Studio extension, and you can point it to a DLL or a project. I think a DLL, but definitely a project. And yeah, you can do a DLL too. And you can basically view the code from that DLL. And so that's essentially what I just did. So to recap, go back. So to recap, I just took this project right here called home, right? So somewhere there's like a home.dll in the bin directory. And I right clicked after I downloaded this Visual Studio extension called ILSpy. Now I opened ILSpy because I wanted to figure out how this FSharp code translates to C#. And that's what it does down here. Like, this is C#, right? And so you can see how the compiler takes that FSharp code and distills it into C#, right? And yeah, I mean, that's pretty dope. All right, let me close that. So I thought that was also cool that you don't have to declare member variables just to assign parameter values from your constructor. That makes sense to me. I don't know if that made sense to whoever's listening to this. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think any developer that has OCD will love FSharp because you can look at your any file and like everything just looks structured. It just everything just lines up. If you have OCD, then you're going to line it up. And yeah, so I mean that's what some of the code looks like. These are me importing different modules and namespaces, and then here's me loading some data from some repository instance, right? And the syntax of FSharp, is pretty funky, but now it kind of makes sense to me. I mean, I still need help every once in a while, but yeah. So that's what a view model looks like, and or that's what my view models look like, and that's when I use a namespace to basically harbor my view models, and I use again modules to harbor the types and the functions that are specific to the business rules. Okay. Is there anything else I could show you? I don't think so, because everything pretty much has the same makeup. And yeah, so I think I'm just gonna stop it right there. So that's it. That's I guess a brief overview of building out a solution, a mobile solution. In this case, I'm doing a Xamarin Android solution. I'm using Visual Studio and FSharp. And it's been a journey, right? And I mean, I've done TDD using FSharp. I've cranked out the domain logic in FSharp, and I decided to use C# to do the interaction logic, aka user interface and all the wiring that's involved with that. That's it. All right. So my name is Scott Nimrod, and employers, I am available for hire. And I know my stuff, man. I mean, there's some people that are a lot years, ahead of me, but I have a lot of information that I can share and make developers at your shop better. And I'm available for hire. And that's it. Representing now Miami Beach by way of Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm signing off. Adios. Te veo a ratito. I'm out. Peace.